Andrei, let's start with what's happening right now in Cuba. The United States have sent a submarine there in Cuba. We know that the Russian warship is there. And how do you see the situation in Cuba? What's going on in Cuba?
Very simple. First, for people who are desperate and scared, completely into oblivion, so to speak, by all this propaganda, there is no Cuban Missile Crisis 2.0. None. The reaction from the United States, it's not just one submarine. I'm pretty sure there's a couple of them there. And it's not only there. There are two destroyers, one U.S. Coast Guard cutter. There are P-8 Poseidons flying all over the place. So, but this is nothing like Cuban Missile Crisis. It's normal operational response from the U.S. Navy, which of course they view the Caribbean as their kind of, backyard. It's good old Monroe Doctrine, if you wish, in action. So plus, obviously, they understand what Russians moved to Cuba, which is in terms of combat striking power. It is immense. It is immense because we live not in 1962, we live in 2024. And both missile submarine, SSGN, guided missile submarine, Kazan, which is the state-of-the-art latest, of the Yasin class submarines, and Admiral Gorshkov. They are carriers of such very interesting weapon systems as, of course, 3M14 caliber, uh, with their range. Original calibers are 2,500-kilometer range. They're updated 314M. They have a 4,500-kilometer range. These are cruise missiles which can strike along the whole seaboard of not only United States but Canada too. Not that you need to strike anything there. So and of course Zircon, Admiral Gorshkov, and soon Kazan, they are carriers of the 3M22 hypersonic missile Zircon, and its range is 1,500 kilometers. There's nothing which can stop this missile, period. There's nothing. Anybody who tells you all those fairy tales. So, no. And they are systems which have been confirmed. Their very high technological capabilities in combat, in special military operations. Both Zircon, and all other missiles have been used to a devastating effect. So obviously it concerns people in Washington, naturally, because Russia demonstrates there first. It demonstrates not only the fact that it can strike anything in the on the eastern seaboard, but she could anyway. And as I wrote yesterday in my blog, and that's going to be the video today, it's these two ships are demonstration, the flag demonstration primarily. Their striking force is out there, and it is on the submarines, and they are clandestine. The only thing they do is hide. So it's primarily PR. But yeah, as any, especially such capable ships, when they visit port of such a sensitive country for the United States as Cuba, it is always, a media circus and political issues and things of this nature. Russians are not there to attack United States. They are to demonstrate that they can interdict, considering the ranges of those missiles, any kind of the supply lines on the shipping lines of communications of the United States. If NATO decides to commit suicide by cop, that means, to fight Russia. Europeans cannot fight Russia. They are nobodies militarily. So the only way is for them to fight if the United States sustains some kind of operations and can ship over the Atlantic, there bunch of supplies and troops and things of this nature. So, well, yeah, those ships are designed specifically to sink everything which moves from the North America towards Western Europe, and that's the point. So but no, there is no Cuban Missile Crisis. Russians are not going to attack United States. United States will do their regular flight overs and following things, and they will definitely want to take the acoustic and other physical field signatures of such most advanced submarine in the world, actually, such as Kazan. And yeah, it's just regular combat work for navies. What can I say?
Yeah. Shoigu is saying that if Ukraine attacks the civilian facilities, they're gonna respond with non-strategic nuclear weapons. There is a report in the Daily Express the Ukraine is planning to launch a terror campaign bombing schools and other civilian infrastructures. This is very serious when you see Shoigu is talking about non-strategic nuclear weapons. There are reports that Ukrainians are ready to commit suicide. And how do you see the situation right now in Ukraine?
Well, there's nothing to see really. By the way, my video will come up also shortly about this. Specifically, the streets in every single city in Ukraine are empty, literally empty. There are no people on the streets and like 1 or 2 cars per several blocks. They all hide, they all ran away. The country is in a complete economic collapse. Well, there's no economy. It is sustained primarily by the West. And when they talk about killing Russian civilians, attacking schools, children, and things like that, that's the policy of London and Washington. So this is what those people, they also support now openly the Azov Nazi battalions. This is everything you need to know about the curators of the Kiev regime. They are, because they are cowards in Washington and London, they are afraid, they basically literally put their pants from the idea of fighting conventional war against Russia. So what's left? What's left are the indirect strategies, which are, of course, sabotage, terror, and things of this nature. So about non-strategic weapons, people have to understand what non-strategic weapons are. They are not tactical nukes. They are non-strategic weapons. As many times have been repeated by me, by my friend Vladimir Trukhan, and other military specialists in Russia. The non-strategic are the weapons which are not under the auspices of the strategic arms treaties. So it doesn't mean that it has to be a tactical nuke. It could be 1 megaton warhead delivered by, it's all about systems of delivery. And in this case, I don't know if they want to try to see what's going to happen to Kiev, for that matter, if it comes down to that they will start to attack, probably the Western media will applaud if they will blow up some kindergarten, or take hostage school like it was in Beslan. There is nothing more than will, will be pleasant for people in Capitol Hill or, London to see that. This is the only way they operate. And so, but the response could be just to make a point, but I don't think so it's going to happen really, so it's the Russian nuclear strategy is very specifically designed, and you can read articles 26 and 27 of the Russian military doctrine. It's not primarily, exclusively when there is a danger to the existence of the Russian state. But terrorism, well, we'll see.
Yeah. There are reports that says Biden and Zelensky will sign a security agreement after their meeting in Italy. And it seems that in this security agreement, they're saying that the United States will not commit to use its troops to defend Ukraine. And do we know what would be such a security agreement if they are not taking into consideration the use of troops, the United States troops?
PR. It's all primarily PR. So does the United States want to commit troops? No. They know what's going to happen. First, they will have to deliver a required force, and required force is calculated not by people such as Jake Sullivan, who wouldn't be able to solve simplest linear equation. We're talking about military professionals. And in Pentagon, there are many still military professionals who understand a little bit about operational planning. And they understand if they want to fight the immediate reserve, number of reservists, which are already partially activated, which is 2.3 million. Russia can arm and provide, completely arm and provide with everything needed. Oh yeah, good luck with that. They will need to declare their draft in the United States, and then they will start to arrive in the copious numbers of the killed and wounded back, which will make Vietnam look like a kindergarten, which it will be. So yeah, that is why they don't want any troops. So they know the outcome. So that means there is still a morsel of the common sense and common military sense. And this is all PR. This is what United States have been doing primarily in the military political field for the last, I mean, at least 50 years, chest thumping. We're the greatest, we're the best. And then, no, we're not going to send troops. Of course they don't. So PR, they will transfer slightly more, maybe they're already sending a couple more Patriots from Germany. They will be obviously destroyed. So down this F-16 business, which is funny, ridiculous business. So they will be shut down. So yeah, what can I say? Russia fights the war of 21st century. They continue to reside in the war of the 20th, and they don't know what to do about it.
Sergei Lavrov was talking about a symmetrical response from Russia if the United States continues to send weapons to Russia's enemy. And this is a very key point in his argument, symmetrical response. In your opinion, when he's talking about a symmetrical, he's talking about Taiwan, he's talking about Africa, he's talking about Middle East.
Everywhere you listed. So, and again, there are so many ways of making life for the United States difficult in terms of whatever they perceive of the national interest. And there are obviously American troops. There is African command now, So why not make life of the African command miserable? So you can create what they thought they created, in 1979 with Afghanistan. You can create similar situations symmetrically, all over their, so to speak, fringes, and even deep into the, American empire. Just to give you example, well, Venezuela already flies Su-30s, for its air force. Well, then you might as well give them something like, I don't know, Caliber missiles or Onyx easily. Syria has Onyx missiles. So, and this suddenly just changes the game completely. Apart from the fact nobody knows what will be loaded into those bastions complex, for example, which are also can shoot not only Onyx missiles, they also shoot 3M22 Zircon. So, yeah, there are so many ways of doing things, and as I already stated, we are looking at the miscalculation by Washington, which is historic and it's tectonic. It's something like, well, Hitler thought that we will, need to just kick the door and it will fly over the hinges when he was invading Soviet Union. We know how it all ended. So we have similar situation times 10 right now. And yeah, there are many ways to do it.
Yeah. There is an article in Politico. It says 6 lame ducks and Giorgia Meloni in reaction to what is happening right now in Italy, G7 summit. We know that what's happening right now in the European Union, the new elections show how the situation is changing in the European Union. Do you think how much of this type of shifting, the public opinion is shifting from the left to the right wing? They're talking about left and right, and we know that both of them are the same, but at the end of
Yeah.
the day, people are looking for some sort of alternative in Europe. How much of these type of reactions on the part of Europeans is coming from the conflict in Ukraine and what has happened during these 2 years?
Ukraine is not the primarily concern for them, for Europeans. It's just that they don't understand. Most of them don't. Many do, but most don't. That essentially what the deterioration of the economic situation is directly influenced by the conflict in Ukraine. So some people understand that for Europe it's over. Without Russian energy, they will never be again what they used to be for the last 50 years. So, and this complete disastrous suicidal cultural and social policies. So in this particular case, well, yeah, they're gonna elect somebody else. What difference does it make? Everything pretty much will continue the same way. Plus, again, Europe is irrelevant. It's not a subject of the international policy. It is an object. And no matter who comes to power, political power there, it wouldn't change much anyway. So the right, left, whatever. Le Pen is the same globalist, for example, in France. They don't have anybody else. And those parties which are, it's for Russian liberals, like all those, clowns who write for RT, that, oh yeah, there's shift and some hope. There's no hope for Europe. They don't understand this because they own some is real estate in Europe. They still, grasp to the last straw, thinking that they can prevent a catastrophe, which is already unfolding as we speak. And the reaction of the European public is classic: too little, too late, because Europe is past the point of no return.
Yeah, but the situation especially in France and Germany is so important. We know that there are reports that in the French media they were talking about that Macron is considering the resignation from his position, but later on they said now he's not going to resign. But what's the difficulty that Macron is facing, in your opinion?
Well, first, neither Germany nor France are really important. Okay, they are important for the internal European Union, hustle basically, and whatever they commit, in terms of, well, pretty much some of it are criminal. So you cannot change elites. There are no elites. Most of them are morons, as you already said. So most of them are people without any integrity, and they are not very well educated. I mean, they're not intellectual. So yeah, we're looking at the extremely low quality of the what passes for the elite. Look at Boris Johnson or Rishi or Liz Truss or Macron, for that matter, or Scholz, for crying out loud. So we're looking at people who are with a feeble-minded, and the only thing they know how is to grab onto power, and they are obviously puppets of the United States. So in this case, they're not really that important. Okay, whoever comes, as I already stated, in their place, whatever this shuffle, in their political top, it makes no difference whatsoever because of the clockwork of the European Union and the way it is set up. And so I don't know, so and plus, let's face it, unlike Americans, large portions of them, very large portions, probably majority. I don't know if it is overwhelming majority, but it's certainly significant majority. I don't know, 65% maybe. I'm just, throwing the number here. Of European public doesn't like Russia, and they don't like Russians. So in this particular case, no matter who comes to power, they will be expressing still the will of the European people not to have Russians inside European home, if you wish. So Russians do not want to go there anymore. In fact, it's about time, you just erected the Iron Curtain, especially culturally and socially. But they still think that they are so great. They are not. Europe is again, it's gonna be poor. It's going to have a lot of chaos, which already observing fact is, and there is a lot of it in the United States too. So I am talking about homelessness. I'm talking about the whole, communities where the police doesn't even dare to go. We look at the collapse of the armed forces. The industrialization is proceeding just with incredible speed. So in this case, whatever they do, or whoever they elect in Germany or France or Netherlands, for Russia, for example, it doesn't matter. They don't like Russians, except the only people who care about is like those people who pen all kinds of stupid articles and hope that somehow the communication lines will be restored. They will not be. Europe lost any kind of meaning, cultural and social, primarily for Russia at large. And after that, economically, they same.
Yeah, just new polls in Germany shows that more than 80% of Germans do not believe that Ukraine can win this conflict. When it comes to the mainstream media and how they're treating the public opinion, how they're trying to change the public opinion, it's amazing to see these polls coming out that 80% do not believe that Ukraine can win in this conflict?
First, nobody cares what Germans or French or, for that matter, Americans think about this conflict. First, the framework or framing of the issue is completely wrong, which is probably deliberate. Russia doesn't fight with Ukraine. Russia fights with NATO. And so as we speak, the NATO bluff is being called. And in this particular case, they can think and, have opinion about whatever they want. This is not how the real world of the serious applied geopolitics works. So, and opinions about this, they will shift. It's for those people who believe in the so-called democracy, ghost mythology. There's no democracy in Germany. It is the totalitarian country with the totalitarian ideology, with the media which are fully controlled by either CIA or whatever they're. So who cares what they think? They next tomorrow you will believe them, depending on how you operate with your media. Germans will believe in that there is a life in on Jupiter, and they will believe 80% of those people will believe it. Public opinion at large generally doesn't matter. It is all, so to speak, chimera of the how to put it politely, the optimism of the restoration of the World War II, and that they somehow have democracy. They don't. Okay, this is completely corrupt political system with the unelected bureaucracy in the European Commission sitting on top of it. So it's because it is corrupt. It means nothing. It's like you're talking to the people who take bribes from you, and then they apply to you to behave yourself in accordance to law. There is no law anymore in Europe, that's for sure.
Yeah. Andrei, one of the problems with this, we had this new summit in Switzerland that has failed to produce anything as we expected before. And right now, it seems that Zelensky is so much in favor of the continuation of the conflict. You see, in the European Union, all the leaders want to continue this war. It seems that European leaders are trying to distract their people from what's going on in their country with the war in Ukraine, with what's going on in Ukraine. And Zelensky has his motives, European leaders have their motives. Biden and his administration, for the sake of the 2024 presidential election, they want to continue this war, this conflict. Maybe they want to hand it over to the next president of the United States because they don't want to accept the failure that has committed in Ukraine. How do you see this situation of going forward with having these political elites in the West?
They are incompetent. They are illiterate primarily, most of them anyway. The Western Academy is a joke. I mean, it's just, for example, the people who are developing those, senses and ideas and things like that, they won't be able to run 7-Eleven store without bankrupting it in a week. This is what they are. So, and expecting them to be concerned with anything which is practical in terms of the running economy, their societies, no, they cannot do that. They have no skills. So the only skill they have is how to reelect themselves, period. Every single American politician in Washington and Capitol, the only concern from them are not Americans, not what is going with American cities, not with the pandemic of the drugs abuse. I mean, horrible situation. Homelessness is, or we're looking at the disintegration practically of the society. No, they don't care about it. They care about how to reelect themselves. And these are the only skills they have. That is why majority of them are people who are lawyers or political scientists. Period. They don't understand how modern societies operate. And when you look at this, Europe is even worse than the United States. At least the United States has, for now, at least enough wherewithal to manipulate those ideas in Europe. So, but again, each time I'm asked, Robert Bach, the economy minister of Germany, he has PhD literally in philosophy. The guy doesn't even have the basic economic education. You look at them, they're professional politicians. They lie professionally. They are psychopaths, sociopaths, most of them. So, and that's the fate of Europe and the combined West. And nothing I can do about it. I live in the United States. I see what is happening to the country, which I do not recognize anymore. But that's the result. H.R. Mencken predicted it, in 1920s, when he said that in the end you will have the moron in the White House. It's a wonderful quote from. So, and what can I say? That really happened.
Don't you think that this desperation in NATO would be hugely dangerous for the future of the conflict in Ukraine?
Could be, could be. There is always the factor of the nut job, especially when you consider the concentration of the nut jobs in and around White House. Those pampered boys and girls, perfumed princesses who never experienced any difficulty, and they are children. They have their psychology, they have their maturity level of the 17, 18-year, some of them probably 12-year-olds, and they throw in the tantrum. And because they are they are illiterate people, again, let me put it this way. They are graduates of all those humanities stupid programs from Ivy League. They do not understand consequences of the war. They never experienced it. So the same Pentagon didn't experience anything like this. They simply have no reference points. So, and then, yeah, they might go for the red button. So, but in this case, that is why Russia kind of handles the conflict the way she handles it, because I need to contain those nut jobs. So who knows? Most of the Washington, they hate the Russian gods. It's it's the fever pitch hatred. Some of it racial, some of it metaphysical altogether. So, yeah, as I already stated, London will applaud the same as Washington when some kindergarten in Russia will be taken hostage and children killed. So that's pretty much most of them anyway. That's their level.
Yeah. If they use the bases in Europe and attack Russia, and which automatically would make those bases a legitimate target for Russia, that would bring Article 5 of NATO. How do you see these complications in this concept of attacking Russia using the bases in Europe?
No, it's not going to bring Article 5 first. And many people don't understand the nature of the Article 5. It merely initiates the discussion between the members of NATO, which may simply bow out and say, you know what, we're not having this. Obviously, they will be coerced, they will be forced and beaten into the agreeing. But the point is, if they're going to be using Ukraine as the jump airstrips, obviously with sitting their NATO, pilots in the Poland and Romania, well, they will get it. And believe me, once those airfields will be attacked, which they will be when Russians decide it, then nothing going to happen. Nobody going to go into the World War III, although some people in Washington, due to their strategic illiteracy, they would want nothing more than some kind of the war against Russia by Europeans. United States wants to sit it out behind the Atlantic and Pacific Ocean. But the point is, escalation. Russia controls escalation. Okay, that's the thing which many people do not understand. If Russia decides to escalate, she will escalate the way it deems necessary. Attack on the airfields in Poland and Romania is not necessarily going to first initiate Article 5, because in this case, Russia has all technical means. Just to give you an example, that container radar, which Russia has the it's over the horizon. It literally sees what is happening on the ground 3,000 kilometers away. They can see, and this is not fairy tales. So this is document, confirmed, including by people who operate this. They can see the planes, commercial and military planes, on the runways, for example, in Netherlands. They certainly can see it in Poland, Turkey, and Romania. So in this case, if Russia decides to strike those sites, she will. But that will be more interesting to see how fast those F-16s will go down. Obviously, make no mistake, they will lie. There will be next ghost of Kiev. Most likely, it will be some ghost of NATO. Oh, Maverick. No, that will be Maverick, I'm pretty sure. So, and they probably report that one of F-16s shot down 15 Su-57s. So that's gonna be in the, that's how they fight the informational wars.
Yeah. We've learned that Poland is talking about making a buffer zone between Poland and Belarus. And where do they want to make this buffer zone? Is gonna be in their territory? Is gonna be at the
It's
border?
pretty
What would that mean?
Yeah, oh gosh, yeah, it's pretty much there. Yeah, if they want to attack Belarus, yeah, they will get it, And again, make no mistake, Russians remarkably, Russians in general, they do not necessarily have a bad feelings towards Poles. In fact, is even today there is a certain degree. Well, there are some Poles who are nut jobs; they hate Russian guts, and there are some Russians who hate Poles. But overall, societies in general, if you put together Russian and Pole, well, they will probably get drunk on vodka or something like that. So but people understand that there are not jobs in Warsaw. Okay, the political elite in Poland, they're absolute, mad dogs, and they don't know what they're talking about, obviously. So, but yeah, they will be trying to make buffer zone in, I guess, in Poland. Poland already had some experience with fighting Russians because there are, many Polish volunteers or mercenaries have been killed. Many. There are some even pretty significant graveyards in Poland, which cannot be hidden, where those people who volunteered to fight for Ukraine are buried. So, but in general, Russians do not want to kill Poles. The Russians do not want to blow up, Warsaw. But yeah, people understand that Polish government is basically, how to put it politely, not adequate people. Let's put it this way.
They're still talking about Ukraine being part of the European Union. Do you think that they're still just playing a game with Ukraine, and why they're doing this, in your opinion?
Of course, it's game. They need to, as you correctly stated, to continue conflict because they are afraid to lose power. I'm talking about West. In Ukraine, you are correct. Therefore, Zelensky, he thinks that the more war continues, the more he stays in power because he's now scared crapless. Honestly, he knows that he senses that his game is up, and the question is how he will go out. Either he in the body bag by the SAS guys, who guard him, or maybe they will allow him to go to live in Antarctica, somewhere. I don't know. But the point is, yeah, this is a combination of the forces of not normal people, both in the West and in Ukraine, pursuing their own personal political agendas. And for them, they think, because they always thought that they know how to fight war, which they don't. And Russia is ready. Russia is ready to fight them as long as it takes until their Europe implodes, into the riots and becomes utterly poor and, moving towards the third world, So this is happening as we speak, essentially. And as I already stated, this all is a result of the complete miscalculation and illiteracy of the American intelligence and military and political circles when they were conceiving this, harebrained scheme about, using Ukraine as the ram against Russia. When they don't study history, how to put it politely. None of them read ever Bulgakov or Tolstoy, just none of them. They are illiterate people, as I already stated. So, and for starters, not to speak about purely military, operational and strategic issues. So, and when you look at this, yeah, he will continue to kill more Ukrainians until there will be nobody else to gather on the streets. The United States insists that he lowers the bar for total mobilization to 18 years, and we're talking about kids now after that. So, yeah, he will continue to annihilate Ukrainians. Russia will oblige. So if Ukrainians didn't know how to deal with that and they do not want to overthrow this guy, well, what's their problem? I'm sorry to say this. This is the cynical game of war in a of hard, cold, hard professionals. So is there emotional element to it in terms of Ukraine? Well, we know that 15 million people ran away from Ukraine from 2014. Some Ukrainians say it's now 27 million there. Mr. Medvedev, Dmitry Medvedev, who is definitely more informed about what is going on, Ukraine population now is down to 19.7 million people. The country was reduced twice. It cannot recover. It's over for Ukraine. The only thing which is happening right now is arrangement phase, where Russia will stop, what Russia will decide to take on her balance, and what will be left as the probably confederation type, territories, primarily agricultural, and that's about it. But if they want to go to the European Union, even during the Istanbul negotiations, Russians say, yeah, European Union is okay. NATO is not, but the problem is, does European Union want to take this on itself? I don't think so.
There is a report, the World Bank has more than doubled its forecast for Russia's economic growth in 2024. It was 1.3. Right now, they're reporting it's going to be 2.9. It's unbelievable. When you look at the Russia's economy, when you look at the Russian army today, they are much more powerful than they were before this conflict in Ukraine started. And I recently talked with Colonel Larry Wilkerson. He was comparing the United States today and United States during the Cuban Missile Crisis. He said that is not anything comparable to what it was before. And because in those days, the United States was much more powerful than today. And we don't see this reality being translated, being interpreted in the behavior of the politicians in the United States. Because when you have such an enemy who's powerful, the economy is powerful, the army is powerful, you have to consider to be prudent. You have to consider to be much more cautious in your movements. But you don't see any sort of prudence in their behavior.
As I already stated many times, the lower level of the intellectual and development of the Western elites. America in 1962 was a powerhouse, industrial powerhouse. It was obviously still, having a very huge emotional, industrial, social, moral high after World War II, because the United States actually profited greatly from World War II. And it had an enormous industrial plant. It's not the case today at all, obviously, and Larry is absolutely correct when he says so. These people, you have to understand the clockwork of American education, primarily, not all of it, but primarily. Clockwork is, it's like the wrong, wrong watch or wrong clock. You wind them up, but they constantly either, go, fall back or, rush. And you cannot educate those people. If you take this Ivy League, all the humanities, history, whatever, sociology and other types of things, as I already stated, they confabulated their own history. They created BS. That's what they teach there. And they bought it into it. Okay. And so when you have those people, and these are primarily American elite, they do places like Yale, Princeton, or Harvard, whatever, those soft degrees programs, like, as I already stated, history, political science and things of this nature, where they teach nothing essentially, they are preparing them that we are the greatest that ever was. So you remember Obama, the finest fighting force in the history. Ancient Romans probably were turning in their graves, and even Wehrmacht was like, really, we taught you everything. We knew, and well, they still lost to Russians. But the point is, so that's the level. You cannot convince average graduate of this, Ivy League humanities program that, dude, reality is not what they taught you there. Because most of those professors, they have to be actually disqualified from teaching to start with. especially in the issues related to the strategic studies and national security studies and things of this nature. So, and when you have those people, which also come from the public system of education of the America with extremely low level of STEM, the way mathematics is taught in the United States on the level of schools is pathetic. Really, it's ridiculous, and it's a third world, really. So same goes to issues of the science, which they call science. There's no science. There is a chemistry, the physics, the things of this nature. So you have people who are not very really ready for the modern world, and as a result, they all clock to all those, artistic programs and humanities programs, which provide zero statesmanship skills. So America doesn't breed statesmen anymore. The last really person who was on the level of statesman, I would say. However, we may disagree, and and there is a lot to disagreeable about it, was of course George Bush Sr. and James Baker, as Secretary of Defense. These were the people who were the last statesmen in the United States. After that, Bill Clinton wasn't statesman. He was, well, we know who he was. It's same as his, bunch of the nincompoops he, collected around himself, and war criminals such as Madeleine Albright. And the same goes for Bush Jr., same goes for Obama, same goes for Trump. These are not statesmen. These are politicians. They are PR. They are clowns, what have you. Blowhards, hot air balloons, but they are not statesmen. They do not understand what America is themselves. They have no clue because they don't have. You have only the guys. They go out and into some statistics course. And they come up with this statistic, and they provide constantly this repetition of the cycle of GIGO. Garbage in, garbage out, garbage in, garbage out. They lose awareness. Then suddenly they face a situation like which you would call for them the black swan. And they look at this, at the picture which is unfolding in front of them. They do not even know how to react. And then you have neocons. These are altogether, it's just nut jobs, basically. Most of them are people who, are good cases for psychiatrists to study, so it's, and I'm not exaggerating. I'm not using the figure of speech. Literally, when you look at people from neocon camp, these are not normal people.
In this 2 years, more than 2 years of the conflict in Ukraine, how has this conflict affected the relationship between Russia and China, considering how Russia is sharing their military technology with Chinese? How much is that important in your opinion?
There's a huge importance, and you have to understand, Chinese officers, they do learn operational level skills, not just tactical. I mean, tactical is for all those YouTube channels, the fanboys who like, oh yeah, look at this, they blew up this tank. Oh my God, this thing, So most of it anyway is just like. The point is that China doesn't have the operational level experience of this. I mean, nobody does actually today. United States doesn't have it either. So it's incredible body of knowledge which needs to be internalized. You cannot just learn. Learning is not enough. Even understanding is not enough. Well, that's what many people do not understand. You have to internalize it when it begins to guide you. And so there are a number of Chinese officers, I'm pretty sure, let's put it this way, who are obviously involved in the learning process there, including probably on the line of the combat contact. So they probably are there. They're certainly in staffs, I'm sure. And of course, yeah, with regards to Taiwan, they rely on Russia as the strategic rear, both providing their commodities like energy. And we already know another pipeline is being built. There's a lot of going on there. And again, will Russia provide China with some of her weapons? Yes, I'm pretty sure. Many people forget when Comrade Z, and his team of hundreds of people, can you imagine, he brought the freaking whole government with him, arrived in Moscow in March 2023, last year. the first thing which he did, literally, they moved into the hotel. Then most of the team, and especially his military, political, and industry people connected to military, including Minister of Defense, they went immediately to Kremlin, and for several hours behind closed doors in a very narrow, how to say it, group of people from Russian side and from their side, they were discussing something which nobody knows what they discussed. I will go out on a limb here, and I would say, as I stated before, there was a discussion on what weapon systems Russia will provide, primarily hypersonic nature for China. If, God forbids, anything comes hot up near Taiwan, that China have enough means to sink. I know it sounds horrible, but I mean, to sink whatever the surface forces will be trying to prevent China of taking Taiwan, back, if it comes down to, to force. Or Chinese do not want to do it by force, but they are being provoked constantly. As I already stated, United States is really good at provoking things. It cannot fight the war, but it's good at provoking. Like, Tonkin Gulf 2.0, yeah, you might expect this kind of crap. But if they get involved, they will be defeated. And Russia will see to it.
Yeah. Andrei, just to wrap up this session, we know that as we talked before, we know that what's happening right now in the European Union, these new elections, how the public opinion is not satisfied, is not happy with the current administration in Europe, most of the countries. And here comes we had the conflict in Ukraine. Right now we're having the conflict in Taiwan. How much Europe is ready to accept a new conflict in Taiwan, and how much Europe is ready to risk its economy to such a conflict with China? Do you think that in Europe they would go with the United States, that would hugely affect their economy against China, or they gonna try to convince the United States not to do that?
European, as I already stated, Europeans are object. They will do what as they told. The United States will tell them to jump. They will ask how high. As I already stated, public opinion in Europe doesn't matter. I'll give you an example. French were voting for the same old, crap, basically. Sarkozy, Hollande, the socialists, to supposedly some kind of the Gaullists. There are no de Gaullists there, Gaullists anymore there. They're all kind of the corrupt nincompoops running around, like headless chickens. So no matter who you invite, as I already stated, Marine Le Pen, what difference does it make? She probably has a truckload of the blackmail materials on her. Plus, there are all kind of people who are bought around her by somebody else, by London or Washington. Plus, they have all other people in France who, well, how to put it politely, they voted for Macron twice. They wanted it. Let them deal with this. You asked for it, you got it. Just live with that. And so, in this case, as already stated, Europe doesn't matter. They wanted it. They brought Europe to a complete destruction. And again, we're looking at the Islamization. We're looking at the passionate part of the Europe, especially in France. Muslims from Maghreb, there are all kinds of people who are there. They're passionate. Unlike those, European, French men who are basically emasculated completely. Really, look what they did when they needed to do in, I don't remember the name of the city. It doesn't matter really. So, and they had to call on their, National Guard. Their police are cowards. They are beaten. They cannot even defend themselves. So, and yeah, that will continue. It will increase only because, again, as I already stated, the whole politics of Europe has been completely emasculated. There are no men who can say, we had enough. This cannot continue like this. Nobody will come to say France. So they will continue to vote for globalists, and they eventually will expire as the nation probably by 2050. If they don't, get into some kind of internal fight with them, so. And same goes for Germany, So it's interesting how Eastern Germany votes today. That's really interesting. Some people who retain the sense, common sense, from the times of GDR, which is funny, isn't it? How ironic it is all. Soviet Union preserved a little bit of Germanness on in Germans who are supposed to be, living under some kind of, concentration camp and things like that. Funny, isn't it? As per Great Britain, it will break up. I mean, there will be London, dirty and smelly, and so that's about it. And they will still imagine that they matter, So I know it sounds cynical, but it is not. It is the way it is. This is where Europe goes, and nothing can stop it now, short of the armed rebellion. Armed rebellion by who? Did you see Eurovision 2024? That's their man. You saw them exposed completely. So there you go.
Before wrapping up, we know that recently the United States has offered a defense treaty to Saudi Arabia. In return, the United States is asking for normalization of the relationship with Israel and just prohibiting the Chinese bases in Saudi Arabia. Do you think, as you mentioned, as you describe what is happening right now in Europe, but the situation is not anything like what's happening in Europe in the Middle East. The situation is totally different. We had Turkey moving toward BRICS and even not willing to fight Russia within NATO. And right now they're trying to offer Saudi Arabia, they're trying to convince them to go to be closer to them. Do you think that this new movement on the part of the United States would work in Saudi Arabia?
There will be attempts on MBS Live. Okay, let's put it this way. So, and of course, there will be some, extremist circles, financed by probably London and Washington. But the point is that Saudis are not completely stupid. They know what the defense pact with the United States means. Crappy weapons which do not work, which already didn't work on many occasions in Saudi Arabia after Houthis attacked the Aramco facilities. So, but the point is that, as I already stated, we are living through the once a millennium historic tectonic shift. So when the what is called global south, and for example Arab Street, they look at the United States and now it's kind of like, nah, these are not really people we can trust. So whatever they will try to do, obviously they will try to put Saudi Arabia under its own control. But the shift already happened. Now it just kind of, the aftershocks, and we will see where it will bring us all. But it is clear that if Saudi Arabia doesn't want to, who says that somebody has to do something about it, for example, like Russia or China? Where do you know that Thailand today applied for BRICS? This is another wowzer, okay? So I mean, and when you look at the 4 points of the BRICS foreign ministers statement, which they made, it's shocking. It's officially declared that everything like International Olympic Committee, World Health Organization, even United Nations, they have to be completely rebuilt, including the Security Council. So that means, International Monetary Fund, World Bank, those people are clowns, really. They are there not to create sound economic analysis. They are there to further down the narrative of the primarily, Anglo-Saxon world about how great they are, how everybody else sucks. So they cannot do this anymore either, because you cannot lie constantly. So, and yes, the geopolitical objectives of BRICS have been stated very clearly. So, and this is essentially remaking of the world order. United Nations, if it's not going to reform, it's going to be abandoned altogether, and BRICS will emerge as the new international platform for the completely new set of the international laws. Well, essentially, there will be a repetition or reiteration with some adaptation for the modern world, so to speak, of the UN Charter. But the Western world will not be allowed anymore to dominate the discussion. And yes, as they said, it's time to freaking change the Security Council? Why India is not there? Nobody can understand, you know. So, and this is whatever you say about India, it's a gigantic economy, you know. So, and you look at those things, you're like, yeah, boy, I thought Soviet Union collapse was a big deal, which it was. But this is something else altogether on a completely different level. Okay, so and we just can observe in awe what is unfolding in front of us. You know, nobody lived into something like this, and you know, just in 1,000 years.
Mhm. But the question, Andre, would be why would the Saudis need to have a defense treaty? Who's gonna attack them if they
It's a
don't have
recycle
any?
of American weapons. It's a recycle of American weapons. They need defense treaty for United States military industrial complex to sell this garbage there to them, you know, so which is of course overpriced, you know, completely unworkable in the real modern combat. So that's what they do. They sell them those F-15s, then they're gonna selling them F-35, which is a butt of the jokes all over the world. They will be sending them, continue to sell them those Patriots, which do not work in modern battlefield. So, and yeah, tanks, whatever, you know, there's a lot which they want to sell there to enrich people, you know, their stakeholders. You know, they don't care. That's the only reason they need it.